Now, though, we go from talking about modern warfare to talking about warfare from some time ago. Well, not that long ago, I guess. Josh Rom is here. Hello, darling.
Hello, how are you?
Oh, it's lovely to see you. Entertainment journalist and host of the Sun's Awards
Yes.
Watch. Now, this is I really want to see this, Oppenheimer.
Yes.
It's been much talked about.
Yes, very highly anticipated.
Highly anticipated. It's interesting how these war movies are kind of. We had in the Western Front. We had all of these war movies now.
Yeah, absolutely.
That are being revisited. But this is very specific, isn't it?
Yes, this is very specific. So Christopher Nolan, director, of course, he was known for films like Dunkirk. He was also very much known for that pandemic film, Tenet. That was the film to try and get people back into the cinema.
He's known understand a bar of Tenet,
but it did have a good ending. It did have a satisfying ending. Didn't understand
not an
inch of it whilst watching, but actually, with the ending, I was like, okay, it kind of makes sense.
I'm going to have to watch it again. I was so frustrated. I think I was throwing things.
I mean, listen, this has the twists and turns of a Christopher Nolan film, except without the complicated plot. It's actually very much easy to understand, and it's also based on history. So you've got this character, Robert Oppenheimer. He is a scientist. He's not that proficient in the lab. However, he has an understanding of quantum physics like no other. He understands the theory. And this film kind of shows his brilliance and his rise to what was his biggest achievement and arguably his most devastating achievement, which was he was the inventor. I've kind of been named the father of the atomic bomb. He led the laboratory in Los Alamos during the Manhattan Project. That was the project where the British, the French and the Canadians came together. Sorry, not the British, French and Canadians. The British, the Canadians and the Americans came together to invent the atomic bomb. Now, they were in a race against they thought they were in a race against the Nazis in order to invent this. The Nazis had their own science to this, but what this film is, it's just so brilliantly nuanced because it brings all of these themes together. It brings the scientific minds, it brings the hubris, because what this film does show, it shows the, this weapon and how it actually was Robert Oppenheimer's downfall, and you've got this kind of undercurrent of different political aspects of it. Robert Oppenheimer had suspected communist sympathies. His wife was a Communist Party member when she was younger. He had lovers who were also Communist Party members. There's undercurrents of anti-Semitism and how that hindered the Nazis and their scientific progress. You've got this sexual tension. You've also got the kind of home aspect, the relationship with his alcoholic drunken wife as well. And again, this kind of story of hubris. I mean, it's so brilliantly nuanced. Let's take a listen to the trailer.
We have a 12-month head start.
18.
How could you possibly know that?
We've got one hope. All America's industrial might and scientific innovation connected here. A secret laboratory. Keep everyone there until it's done.
Let's go recruit some scientists.
Build a town, build it fast. If we don't let scientists bring their families, we'll never get the best.
Why would we go to the middle of nowhere for who knows how long?
Why? How about because this is the most important thing to ever happen in the history of the world?
So it's very much tension there. You can tell this is meant to be Christopher Nolan's new World War II drama, big epic film. It's 3 hours long and It's got the most star-studded cast you've ever seen. You've got Matt Damon, you've got Robert Downey Jr., you've got Emily Blunt, you've got Florence Pugh, you've got Rami Malek, you've got Kenneth Branagh as well. But at the centre of it is Cillian Murphy, of course, the Peaky Blinders star. And, well, when I was at the premiere, I spoke to most of the stars in this film. Cillian Murphy, he is the star of this. He, of course, carries the film. He is playing the character very much at the centre of this movie, Robert Oppenheimer himself. This is a man that, regretted also his invention. You know, they dropped the bomb on Hiroshima expecting the war would come to an end, and then the Japanese even still then didn't surrender. And then when they dropped the bomb on Nagasaki, actually the scientists in Los Alamos actually got really upset because they thought from a strategic point of view that the war was over by then and there was just needless deaths. And you know, what kind of brought his downfall was the fact that yes, he embraced this title of the inventor, the father of the atomic bomb, but he had a meeting with President Truman where he says, I feel like I've got blood on my hands, and President Truman didn't react well to this. And actually part of his policy, which is why he got his security clearance cleared later on, is because he very much regretted inventing these bombs because he knew the destruction that the bombs could do. So, you know, this is a very important character, a very significant character at the centre of a huge epic film, which is 3 hours long. And I asked Cillian Murphy, I asked him on the red carpet, did he feel much pressure stepping into this really quite profound role, particularly considering the subject matter?
Yeah, but that's what you want. You want to be challenged. You want to feel like it's a stretch, and they're the sort of roles that I'm attracted to.
And the subject matter of this is really, actually, at times, really quite terrifying. What were your first thoughts when you read the script, and what do you think audiences are going to come out thinking?
It's not up to me to tell audiences what to think. It's up to them to decide, and audiences are super smart, and I think they're going to love this. First and foremost, it's thrillingly entertaining, you know.
And what did you think, though, of the script?
When I read the script? Yeah. Oh, I thought, wow, I got a lot of work to do.
And did you actually like Robert Oppenheimer as a character? Because he's very multi-dimensional. He does some things wrong. His discovery is also, some might say it saved lives, others might say it's horrible. What do you think of your own character?
You can never judge your character, you know. You have to just try and understand them and have empathy with them. So that's my role.
Amazing. And what was the best thing about working with Christopher Nolan?
Oh, I think I just described that.
So Cillian Murphy talking there to you earlier. I'm waiting for him to play really big villains. He's got a face of a villain, hasn't he?
Yeah, I can see what I can see what you mean. And actually, the beauty of this character is you actually never know what to make of this character because he has so many flaws to him as well. But actually, there is another character in this film which is quite bullish. The character of General Leslie Groves, who was played by Matt Damon, and this was a role for Matt where he stepped into uniform. He had a lot of swagger. He used his great power as a general to kind of boss all these scientists around, kind of leading the project. You know, this character was the no-nonsense army corps of engineers, and he oversaw the construction of the Pentagon back in the day, and he was the director of the Manhattan Project that, of course, developed the atomic bomb during World War II. And I asked Matt, I asked him, I said, what was it like stepping into this character that actually had a lot of power and gravitas?
Yeah, it was really fun. It was fun because the guy, just true to history, like nobody liked him, but he didn't care at all. He was like, and so it was really fun to play a character like that. I'd never had the chance to do that before.
It's a fun mantra to live by. And tell me, what was it like working with the Christopher Nolan?
It's awesome. It's the best job in town. I hope I get it again.
Short and sweet from Matt Damon
there. So he wasn't, it's not just the Americans that the Irish that this film has gone to. One of Britain's greats, or English greats, Kenneth Branagh.
Yes, absolutely. I saw him quite recently, last year, in Belfast, which I thought was absolutely terrific. Academy Award nominated film. He said that was his most personal film to date. We know him as the Academy Award winner, the 4 BAFTA award nominee. He's one of the greats, been in huge films, also directed films. And he's actually got a film coming up about the latest Hercule Poirot film, the latest Agatha Christie adaptation, which is actually going to be going edging a bit more to the horror sort of genre there after Death on the Nile, which will be interesting to watch. But his film in this, so he plays a scientist. It's not the biggest role, actually, and one might almost call it a cameo. And compared to other stars in the film, like Emily Blunt, you know, they had much more substantive roles. They were in the film for far longer than Kenneth was, but Kenneth was still very much happy to walk the red carpet and talk to us, of course, before the actors' strike, which we'll get onto in a bit. But I asked him, I said, you know, this is a huge, epic 3-hour-long film. You're not in it for long, but what was it about this project in particular that he was most proud of?
Well, to be involved with Chris Nolan doing a piece like this with a real-life character, Niels Bohr, who lived and was a significant figure, a massive figure in physics, and had a life that involved involvement with, you know, helping refugees escape the Nazis, and many institutions that he founded. It was a big life. 6 kids, loved his sport. He was a fascinating guy, and he shows up in Los Alamos as a pivotal figure in Oppenheimer's life, because he's one of the fathers of atomic theory along with Einstein. And so to try and do justice to that in a compressed framework is only possible with a master like Christopher, so I was thrilled to be able to do that. And
were you scared with the subject matter of this script? Because the ending in some ways is really quite terrifying.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the homework for this was pretty scary. Don't ask me to lecture on the general theory of relativity, about which Bohr argued with Einstein, but I did at least try and understand it. I'm still working on it.
Kenneth Branagh
doing his homework.
Well, you'd have to, wouldn't you, to sound like you knew what you were talking about.
And especially because he plays a scientist, he has to sound like he knows exactly what he's talking about.
Exactly, and he's probably method anyway. So you mentioned Emily Blunt.
I did, and actually she gives a brilliantly nuanced performance. I mentioned very briefly earlier on, she plays this woman who has communist sympathies. She was part of the Communist Party when she was younger. This is Kitty Oppenheimer, the wife of Robert Oppenheimer. And actually, what the beauty of this is, it almost shows a romantic story as well, because Robert Oppenheimer had an affair with Florence Pugh's actor, Florence Pugh's character, Jean Tatlock, who, bearing in mind, she gets quite naked in this film as well. There are a lot of naked scenes as well, but you know, she's got issues with alcoholism, you know, she's got an issue with kind of standing by her man with this invention and being of in the background of this huge project whilst everything's going on. And then later on in the film, despite the errors of her husband, despite their marital problems, you know, she very much comes to his defense. She's part of the trial scenes later on in the film when he's going through the kind of process of maybe getting his security clearance, reapplying for security clearance, and I won't give away the spoiler of that, but she has she does some amazing work. She is a brilliant actor. Arguably this could be considered some of her best work to date. You know, I know her from lighter films like Mary Poppins Returns, Jungle Cruise, Into the Woods, of course, her iconic role in The Devil Wears Prada, which she starred alongside her future brother-in-law. Of course, her sister Felicity actually married Stanley Tucci as well. I know I digress, but just dropping a bit of knowledge in there. But I know, back to this film, you know, this is arguably her best work, and I wanted her verdict on this.
They're exquisitely written scenes. And it's sort of time, it was time for Kitty to sort of reclaim that brilliant brain that has sort of deteriorated throughout the course of the film. But it was, it was awesome. And it was very claustrophobic in there. I think we were all expecting a big courtroom, and Chris said no, it was, in actuality, it was a tiny, shabby little room where he was really just, you know, dragged across the coals, and so it was a tiny, shabby little room that we shot in.
Now, in this, you were also kind of giving me old-fashioned Hollywood glamour, that kind of, that 1940s kind of clipped speech. What was your aims for this character?
I mean, I never quite know, like, how I'll end up landing upon a certain voice or thing. It's just you sort of play around until something feels right, and I just think, you know, there was a certain way and a kind of musicality at which they spoke, and a velocity, and I felt that about her. She had like a velocity to her. She was such a force.
And how does doing a project like this compared to doing something like Jungle Cruise or Mary Poppins Returns? Is there like an intensity to it?
I mean, some of the scenes are, a bit more intense to play, but the set was really calm and sort of like lovely. It was like a really unchaotic set. But I like going towards the light too,
Emily Blunt there. Kitty Oppenheimer. So I can't wait to see this. It's in cinemas now, is it?
I think it's going to be released this week.
This week. Perfect. Josh Rom, thank you very much indeed. Entertainment journalist and host of the Sun's Awards Watch. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Petrie.
Stay with us because it's going to be sports next.